The weather is finally turning colder, and we're reaching for our warm clothing, often made of materials like wool. In Shakespeare's England, wool was a hot commodity, even landing William Shakespeare and his family in some hot water a time or two. All of this wool had to come from somewhere, though, and while, of course, wool comes from sheep, there's a history to what kinds of sheep were available in 16th and 17th century England. And finding out exactly which ones is what we're covering right now on That Shakespeare Life. Even though the UK was not a thing yet, the sheep breeds in England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales all played a role in the kinds of wool products that were in and around the life of William Shakespeare for this time period. And to explore this history and find out what specifically were the breeds of sheep that would have been available or popular or most often used for the creation of clothing during William Shakespeare's lifetime, including a few that are extinct today, I sat down and talked with textiles expert and historical clothing extraordinaire Jane Malcolm Davies. Here's what she had to say.
There were varying breeds of sheep used for different purposes. And the most the classic division for sheep is whether they are primarily producing milk or primarily producing milk or primarily producing wool. And they're bred to enhance the production of whichever one the farmer is wishing to trade in. So the breeds of sheep we know about, which were highly valued, preeminent amongst them was the Leinster breed of sheep, which was known at the time as Leinster ore. That is the gold that came from the Leinster sheep. But we don't really have Leinster sheep anymore. The way in which livestock has been bred selectively since the 16th century, there is no such remaining sheep. Even the heritage breeds, as they're called, are very, very far removed from the sheep of the 16th century. So it's quite hard for us to imagine what the wool from these sheep would actually have been like. The nearest equivalent, probably, to the Leinster ore today is a sheep called the Ryland. And they were from Herefordshire. So those places like Monmouth, where you have marginal land, they are the best places for raising sheep that produce fine wool. But of course, what everybody really wanted in the 16th century was merino sheep. And they didn't exist in the United Kingdom. In fact, the Basque lands in Spain, where they originated from, very, very heavily protected not only the export of the wool, but also the sheep. So it was a long time before merino sheep could come in and start to improve the breeds that were native or well established in other parts of Europe. And the characteristic of the merino sheep's fibre was that it was very, very, very fine. So it was much more profitable to start interbreeding the existing sheep with the merino sheep once that was possible.
Did different areas in the UK specialize in different breeds? I mean, you mentioned that the area there around Monmouth would have been ideal for raising sheep that produced a fine wool. Were there other areas of the UK that were also known for a kind of sheep?
The Cotswold sheep are mentioned in legislation which defines what can be charged for knitted caps. And the Leinster produces the best knitted cap, so they have the higher prices. And the Cotswold is the next best. And this legislation suggests that the caps should actually be marked in order that consumers can tell the difference. Am I buying a Leinster cap or am I buying a Cotswold cap? There were also, of course, Welsh mountain breeds, such as the ones we have today, the black Welsh mountain, which again, I can't stress enough how different they are from the original, but they are a breed where the name remains. And of course, Shetland sheep were prolific. And again, they are seen as a breed that is very close or as close as we can get to the type of sheep that were available in 16th century Britain.
In our episode with Jane, she covers a great deal of history of wool and wool products made in Shakespeare's lifetime, including details on the infamous Monmouth cap and the steps it takes to go from a sheep all the way to a piece of clothing made from wool. It's quite a process. And she walks us through what that would have looked like in the 16th and 17th century and the steps that it would have included. You can hear our entire conversation with Jane in our podcast episode at CassidyCash.com/episode 293. While you're there, if you want to see insider history related to the history of wool, including illustrations of the now extinct sheep breeds, medieval bestiaries, and of course, museum artifacts where you can see what a Monmouth cap from this time period actually looked like, then be sure to hit that Patreon button on the show notes page to sign up or log in as a patron, and all the extras will expand on the website. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.